couple definitions that you want to get down here. We want to note the difference between a population and a sample. Population is the entire group of individuals that we want to study. So often the population is too large for us to count. Or there are other certain cases where studying the individual actually destroys it. So, like, think about if you are a company that makes batteries and you want to test your batteries to make sure that they last as long as you're advertising. The way you test a battery is to destroy it, right? You would have to use it up. So you wouldn't want to test all of the batteries that you have, because then you would ruin all of your batteries and you wouldn't have any to sell. So that would be a case in which you would need to take a sample, test those, and use that sample to make predictions about the entire population. Or, other times, like in terms of population of subjects, like humans, maybe it's too large, right? If we talk about global population, it's 8 billion people. You can't collect data from all 8 billion people, because not only is it too large, but it's dynamic. It's constantly changing. So that's another case in which, if you want to make or draw conclusions about the population, you need to take a sample. A census is something that collects data from every single individual in the population. So in the United States, we do a census every 10 years. We're in a census year now. It's not truly a census for the reasons I just stated, right? It's impossible to get every person. Truly, there are tons of people that are probably left out of the census, right? Homeless people die while the census is being taken. People are being born while the census is being taken. So again, it's a dynamic population, but it attempts to collect data from every individual in the United States population. And a sample is just a subset of those individuals in the population from which we actually collect data. So what's the problem with convenient samples? So a convenient sample is just a sample of individuals who are easy to reach, and they're often not representative of the population. And so that could be for various reasons. We saw in the cornfield activity, right? The first one sample the farmer took was a convenient sample. It was just the 10 plots closest to his house. But if he did that in the first trial, where the river was irrigating only the far side of the field, he would severely underestimate the yield of corn, right? And so there are different reasons that convenient samples can be bad. If you're trying to get, I don't know, if you're trying to poll to see who people are going to vote for, and you only go to, geez, I'm trying to think of something where two hippies beach house and sample people there, you're probably going to get a lot of liberal people. I don't know. Maybe Republicans like to eat at two hippies too. It's good. Maybe that's something we can all agree on. My point is, if you go somewhere, if you go to a gun shop and take your sample, you're probably going to get a vastly different uh, sample than if you went to multiple places at multiple different times. So a convenient sample often introduces bias. So what is bias? A statistical study shows bias if it would consistently underestimate or overestimate the value you want to know. All right. And then the other definition we'll want is voluntary response. And this consists of people who choose themselves by responding to a general invitation. They tend to show bias because people with strong opinions, often in the same direction, choose to participate in these. Think of Yelp, right? If you look at Yelp reviews, they're often strongly in one direction or the other. People aren't generally, they're not going like, I had an average experience. I'm going to go home and write a review about this place and give it 3.5 stars. That doesn't happen. Either people are really pumped on it and they want to leave a review, or they're really upset about it and they want to leave a review. You tend not to get those people that are in the middle in voluntary response samples. All right, so we're going to identify the population and the sample for each of the following settings. So A, the student government at a high school surveys 100 students at the school to get their opinions about a change to the bell schedule. So often it's going to be easier to identify the sample first, and then you kind of have to extrapolate and decide what population you think they're trying to study. And that's important. Think about what they're trying to study and not about if they are doing a good job of studying it or if they're sampling well, but what population are they trying to generalize to? So here I would go, the sample is the 100 students, and the population I'm going to say is all students at that school. Be as specific as you can when you describe population. So don't just say all students, because that could be interpreted as all students at all schools in the world. All right, B, the quality control manager at the bottling company selects a sample of 10 cans from the production line every hour to see whether the volume of the soda is within acceptable limits. Okay, so the sample there will be the 10 cans. All right, in the chat, what do you guys think the population is for this one? Excellent. Yeah, good job. So all cans of soda produced that hour specifically. So not all cans of soda that they've ever produced, just the ones for that hour they're trying to study for. Also, in May 2010, the Los Angeles City Council voted to ban most travel and contracts with the state of Arizona to protest Arizona's new immigration and enforcement law. You guys remember this? This was 10 years ago, so I guess we were pretty young, but this was a big deal. It was SB 1070, and a lot of companies and people boycotted Arizona, and even like the NBA was refusing to come here, and it was pretty crazy. So the Times conducted an online poll that asked whether the city council was right to pass a boycott of Arizona. The results showed 96% of the 41,068 people said no. What type of sample did the Times use in this poll, and explain how this sampling method could lead to bias in the poll results? So this is voluntary response. This is a good example of voluntary response. And the idea, again, is that people with strong opinions are more likely to respond. So a common type of question on the AP exam would be, they'll give you a scenario like this, and then they'll ask you for what's the problem, and then you have to tell us whether you think it's an overestimate or an underestimate. And in this case, I would say possible overestimate, right? 96% said no, probably overestimating the total um, the lack of support for a boycott. People who are responding seem to all sort of be pointed in that same direction. There's another really good example. Let me see if I can pull it. I think it's in. No, that's not what I'm looking for.